Story Chapter 1. Am I the bad guy for laughing when my wife told my mom to kiss her ass? I'm 23, and I married my 22-year-old wife, let's call her Kay, last year. We just celebrated our first anniversary. I've known Kay since we were in 6th grade. We became friends, then started dating in 9th grade, and I proposed to her right before COVID hit. Kay and my mom, who is 46, have never really gotten along. To be honest, my mom wasn't exactly the greatest parent to me either, but she's still my mother, and I do love her. Now to the actual problem. Kay and I went to my parents' place for our anniversary because my sister was also visiting, and it was a chance for me to finally meet my nephew for the first time. We arrived at my parents' house about 5 days before our anniversary. The first night was fine, the second night was fine. On the third night, I started noticing that Kay was getting annoyed by my mom's comments directed at her. Oh my God, don't touch that, don't touch this, just sit like this, sit properly, and so on. On the day of our anniversary, we went out for the whole day and really enjoyed ourselves. After we got back to my parents' house, my sister and Kay were sitting in the kitchen, drinking wine and chatting. It was around 8 p.m., and we were all starting to wind down for the night. My sister is engaged and has started looking for a wedding dress, so she asked Kay if she could see a picture of her dress to get some inspiration. That's when everything went off the rails. As Kay reached for her phone to show her the photo, my mom suddenly said, "Oh no, sister's name, you don't want a dress like hers. You'll look like a complete slut in that." My sister and I both tried to say something, but before we could, Kay looked straight at my mom and, in the calmest voice I've ever heard from her, said, "Oh, please, you and your saggy boobs can kiss my ass." My sister and I looked at each other and just burst out laughing. My dad's eyes went wide. He looked like he was trying really hard not to laugh too. My mom just got up without a word and went inside the house. My dad followed her. The next morning we said goodbye to my sister and headed home. While we were driving, I kept getting calls and messages from different family members about what had happened. Then, later that night, my mom called me and told me I was a complete idiot for laughing at what Kay said and not defending her. Now she's mad at me and is ignoring my texts and calls. So, am I the bad guy here? Edit. Just to clarify, it's not like I let my mom talk trash about my wife all the time. Yes, I do stand up for my wife. And yes, my wife stood up for herself this time. My wife and I are going to have a serious talk about everything that happened, and I'm 100% on her side. Update. Kay and I talked it through, and we've decided to seriously limit contact with my mom and set some very firm boundaries. Oh man. Mothers like the one in this story are something I will never fully understand. Hating your son's wife for no real reason, just because... What? It feels like she despises Kay, simply because, in her mind, no one will ever be good enough or perfect for her precious baby boy. Only she is worthy, and every other woman is trash in comparison. Only she knows how to properly take care of her son. And as the author himself points out, she wasn't even a good mother to him. It's that classic, I won't give you love, but I also won't let anyone else give it to you either, energy. And obviously, this wasn't the first situation like this. Kay was already exhausted by her comments after just 2 days of this vacation. What really gets me is how the mom called afterward to complain that he didn't defend her. How exactly did she picture that conversation? No, my mom's boobs are not saggy. Don't you dare say that. Personally, I think Kay is an absolute legend here. And finally put her in her place. I get the feeling that nobody in that family, not the sister, not the dad, not the son, ever managed to stand up to her properly, because some people are just convinced that only their opinion can ever be right. But honestly, calling the sister a slut like that, that's crossing such a massive line that I can't even wrap my head around it. If she's comfortable saying that to someone's face, imagine what she's been saying behind their backs all this time. Of course, the commenters agreed that the author is not the bad guy here. Some of the reactions. Not the asshole. Your mom shouldn't dish it out if she can't take it. She totally had that comeback coming. Not the asshole. Your mom is a bully and your wife is amazing. I would have died laughing. Not the asshole. Imagine if your wife had started crying instead. People would be saying, well, you still called her a slut. It was clearly a joke comeback, just like the line about the saggy boobs. Another one. Not the asshole. The only jerk here is your mom. What she said was extremely rude, and she absolutely deserved the response she got. If I were you, I'd have a serious talk with her about how she treats your wife. The author replied that he will be having that serious conversation with his mom. And continuing the topic of moms, is it just me being crazy, or is my mother-in-law actually completely out of line? Story, yours too. Am I crazy, or is my mother-in-law actually really weird? Long story with plenty of strange details. Last summer, I married my amazing husband. Before the wedding, we'd been together for 6 years, and during all those 6 years, his mother has been one giant red flag to me. Don't ask me how he turned out so wonderful. Clearly that apple fell very far from the tree. About a month before our big day, we had a pre-wedding party that my best friends and my mom organized. It was a lovely, cool day with a backyard barbecue. My mother-in-law showed zero interest, didn't help with anything, and showed up an hour late. She said she hadn't brought me a gift yet because it wasn't finished. And then, in front of all my friends, she shows a photo of this ugly blue lace garter she's making for me. And, okay, that would be awkward but tolerable. Except she then gathers herself and actually says she wants her son to think of her on his wedding night, and that I should wear the garter to honor her wishes. I was beyond uncomfortable, trying to dodge the topic, and all I could manage was a weak, "Oh, that's so sweet," before escaping inside to grab more food. My husband knew it made me feel really gross and was upset about it, but he didn't say anything. Fast forward to our wedding day. I'm getting ready, and suddenly the bridal suite door flies open. It's her. She basically yells at me, "Are you wearing the garter?" My best friends are staring at me in shock. I lie and say, "Yes," just to avoid drama. The garter isn't even anywhere near the venue. It's still in the box she gave me at home. She keeps bringing it up all evening. I'm pretty sure she realized I wasn't actually wearing it. My husband and I never planned on doing the whole garter toss anyway. She kept asking when we were going to do it, and we told her we weren't. She seemed annoyed, but that tradition just isn't our thing, so... Was that genuinely weird behavior, or am I just overreacting? She's always been strangely invested in her son's sex life. For example, a few years before the wedding, when we moved into a new place together, she came to see the apartment and noticed the big bedroom window. The only thing she said was, "You're going to need curtains on that window in case he wants to fool around or, take care of himself," and then giggled. I can barely even read that out loud. It's disgusting. You'll need curtains in case he wants to fool around or jerk off, and I still feel like throwing up when I think about it. So now I'm also wondering, at this point, am I the crazy one? Or is it clearly her? Because honestly, what kind of mother wants her son thinking about her on his wedding night? That's some deeply unhealthy, creepy fixation I can't even comprehend. I already regret choosing this story. I did this to myself, and now I'm the one giving myself psychological damage. For what? Anyway, let's look at the comments. Oh wow, I literally had to cover my mouth. Just be direct and say, "Hey, this is inappropriate, it's disgusting." When you start making sexual comments that involve both of us, that is absolutely not okay, so please stop. The OP replies, "Thank you for the advice. I really appreciate it. You're completely right. It's just so weird. I get uncomfortable even thinking about saying it out loud, because what the hell?" Unfortunately, I got to the next comment from the OP. "If my son were thinking about me on his wedding night, I'd throw myself off a cliff. It's terrifying and gross." To which the OP adds, "She also tried, and let me stress, tried, to twerk on him and some of the other guests at our wedding." Jesus. I have an adult son too, and I would never ask, or even want to know, anything about his sex life. It's creepy and just plain nasty. I really hope you burned that garter. And the OP answers, "My dog wore it around his neck all night, which had me laughing so hard I nearly peed myself. She made it for someone with thighs the size of an elephant's leg anyway." So yeah, the husband's mom even tried to turn the garter into some sort of compliment, like, "Oh, I don't even know what size you are, but probably something big." I genuinely hope none of you have a mother-in-law like this, and especially not an actual mother like this. You can at least create distance from a mile. From your own mom, it's a lot harder. Anyway, I think we've had enough unhinged moms for now. Let's move on to the sisters. Story number 3. Am I the bad guy for wearing my engagement ring, even though I knew my stepsister was going to get engaged? Am I the bad guy for wearing my engagement ring, even though I knew my stepsister was going to get engaged? I, 28, got engaged at the beginning of December. For Christmas, I stayed with my mom and stepdad, and they hosted my stepdad's whole side of the family. Step-siblings, their mother, cousins, plus their families, all for a New Year's Eve party. Before the party, my stepsister Rachel's 29 boyfriend Matt told my parents he was planning to propose to her and asked if he could do it at the party. My parents said yes. Everyone dressed up for the party, and of course, I was wearing my engagement ring. Everyone already knew I was engaged, but it was the first time they'd seen the ring in person, so at the beginning of the night, people were naturally curious and wanted to look at it. I noticed Matt was a bit cold with me, but I assumed it was just nerves. The proposal happened, and it was lovely. Everyone congratulated Rachel. People also wanted to look at both her ring and mine, and gave compliments to both of us. There were a lot of comparisons, but nothing nasty, and everyone genuinely seemed happy for Rachel, myself included. The next day, Rachel and Matt started coming after me for wearing my ring to the party. Rachel said I deliberately tried to draw attention to myself on her special night, and that, because I'd known beforehand that she was getting engaged, I shouldn't have worn my ring, especially since I don't wear it all the time anyway. I really don't agree with that. I'd already been engaged for several weeks, and everyone knew about it. I didn't steal her spotlight, and I definitely wasn't trying to by simply wearing my ring. I wore it because I'm engaged. That's what people do. Then, Matt accused me of putting them in an awkward position by wearing my massive ring, when I knew Rachel's ring wouldn't be nearly as big, and that I'd intentionally made her look bad in front of the family. He even started commenting on the other jewelry I was wearing. My stepdad called both of them idiots for how they were acting. My stepbrother said there was no way I could have known they'd react like that, especially since they never asked me not to wear my ring. My mom said that although she knows I didn't do it on purpose, she understands where Rachel's feelings are coming from, because people were more impressed by my ring than by Rachel's. She also said that since my engagement ring is quite unique, I should have realized it would draw attention. Applause. This is such nonsense, and very self-centered. I don't think the OP is the bad guy at all. I honestly think Rachel and Matt are being a bit ridiculous. Every engaged person wears their ring if they're comfortable doing so. Sure, you might take it off for work, or not wear it sometimes. But, you purposely showed off your huge ring? Come on. Sorry, Matt, but that sounds like a you problem. You didn't buy a huge ring, and now you're bitter about it. And bringing up her other jewelry on top of that? That's just jealousy, plain and simple. Honestly, people would be asking more questions if someone who got engaged a few weeks ago wasn't wearing their ring. Something else I don't love, though it's everyone's personal choice how to propose, is the setup itself. Proposing at a family party that you didn't organize yourself? If Matt had actually thrown the party, not the OP's mom and stepdad, that would feel different. If he'd planned the whole event specifically, so all their relatives could see how much he loves Rachel and watch him propose, fine. But he literally just showed up to someone else's gathering and asked, "Hey, can I propose here?" So he didn't really put in effort for the proposal or for the ring, and yet he's this resentful about someone else's jewelry. Personally, I think engagement rings can be literally anything. It all depends on your financial situation and your taste. Taste is taste. To me, how the ring looks is way more important than how much it costs. And honestly, if Matt doesn't have the money right now for some huge ring he keeps obsessing about, he can always, well, excuse me, let me squeeze by here. Update the ring later. I know it might sound strange, but there's nothing wrong with doing what David Beckham did and gifting new rings over the years. Okay, minus the cheating part. You can skip that. Just the new ring every so often thing. The real villains in this story, the real bad guys, are those nosy relatives who started comparing the rings. Who even does that? I can understand people gossiping in the car on the way home, like, "Wow, did you see OP's ring? Rachel's is kinda meh. Matt didn't try very hard." Or the opposite, "I actually like Rachel's ring way more." But standing there at the party, holding out two hands and saying, "Rachel, you got engaged today, but you know, OP's ring is prettier?" I would never say something like that. Even if the ring was, sorry, ugly, I'd still be, "Wow, yay, love is in the air." Who compares engagement rings in that moment? I get that Rachel and Matt might have felt insecure and jealous. That's human. But that still doesn't make it OP's fault. It's not her crime that she earns more, or that her fiancé earns more and can afford a bigger ring. Now the comments, "Not the asshole, you're engaged." It's completely normal for you to wear your ring, especially at family events. What's next? Not bringing your husband to a wedding, because the fact that someone else is married might ruin their big day? You are absolutely not the bad guy for simply wearing your ring. The assholes are the people at the party who turned it into a competition, comparing your bigger ring with Rachel's smaller one and openly implying that yours is better. That's really nasty. I understand why Rachel felt hurt by that, but her anger is aimed at the wrong person. It sounds like Rachel is upset that her ring isn't bigger, but she can't be mad at her fiancé, so she's projecting it onto you. That's probably true. But to me, it also feels like most of the negativity is coming from Matt. OP said he was cold from the very beginning, and it really sounds like his insecurity. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who wound Rachel up about it, to be honest. Purely subjective impression. If I imagine myself in OP's shoes, if I got engaged and my relatives started making comments about the ring, I honestly wouldn't care. I'd be like, I'm engaged. Okay, bye. Say what you want. Matt is basically just angry at someone richer than him for being richer. Sure, I'd also love to have more money, but I'm not going to be mad at people who already do. Another commenter said, Ugh, I'm a bit confused. Isn't OP supposed to wear her engagement ring all the time, except maybe when showering or baking bread? I wore mine 24/7. Apparently not. If it hurts the fragile feelings of her stepsister's fiancé, then everyone at that party should have taken off their rings so only Rachel's could shine. Oh, and Merry Christmas to you all. Don't forget, OP also had the nerve to wear other, unacceptable pieces of jewelry. Exactly. In short, Matt is just jealous, and since they're clearly a matching pair, Rachel probably is too. And with the next story, we'll mix it up even more. Story number 4. My ex is demanding child support for a kid that isn't mine, and my mom and sister are on her side. We're back to our usual combo, mom issues and sister issues. Title of the post, My ex is demanding child support for a child that isn't mine. My mother and sister are on her side. Honestly, what kind of mess is this? A few years ago, I was dating a girl. The relationship was bad. She was extremely controlling and emotionally abusive. It all blew up pretty badly, and we broke up. I moved on with my life, and a few years later, I landed a decent job. It covered all my needs, let me live comfortably, and even save a bit. A couple of months after I started this job, my ex reached out. At first, she just asked if we could talk. I assumed she might want to apologize or maybe try to reconnect or something along those lines. Instead, she showed up with a 5-year-old child and announced that he was my son, and that I needed to start paying child support. I didn't believe her, but the kid's age did line up with the time when we'd gone no contact. I spoke to a lawyer friend, and he advised me to try to handle things out of court if possible. So I told her I would take full responsibility, pay for everything, and be actively involved in the kid's life. But only after a DNA test. Everyone was fine with that, except my ex. She got offended and kept insisting I should just give her the money she deserves. She tried every excuse she could think of, and when those ran out, she went to my family and told them I was trying to dodge responsibility for my child. Eventually, she ran out of ways to stall, and we finally did the DNA test. Big surprise. I am not the father. She was furious at the result and started crying over the money, going on about how it was unfair and how she deserves financial support. But there was nothing she could do. Fast forward to last week. My parents were having a small get-together at their house. My brother, a friend of mine, and I were talking, and my brother started joking about the whole situation with my ex. My friend and I joined in. Some of the jokes were dark humor, but we were on the opposite side of the house from everyone else. We genuinely thought no one could hear us. We were laughing like idiots when suddenly my sister stormed in, furious, and shoved me up against the wall. She had been eavesdropping and was livid. She started yelling about what horrible people we are for making fun of a poor woman. A few hours later, after the party ended, she asked me to come into the kitchen with our parents. Then she launched into a speech about how awful I am because of what I did to my ex. Obviously, my ex has been talking to her, and my sister completely bought her version of the story. This was her way of stepping in. My brother and I just stared at her and asked, "Are you serious right now?" She started accusing me of forcing my ex to be a single mother and said I have a moral obligation to help her. My dad only commented that maybe our jokes were a bit harsh, but that I'm not responsible for that child. Then my mom said something that shocked all of us. Even if the child isn't yours, you make more than enough money to support that child. You should have helped her. Since then, I've been getting a flood of messages. My dad and brother are on my side, telling me I don't owe my ex anything. My sister, meanwhile, keeps telling everyone what a horrible person I am and how I'm ruining their lives. My mom's position is, it's your choice, and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you've become so selfish. I know my ex doesn't deserve a cent from me. I'm not going to give her any money. But the constant pressure and guilt-tripping from my sister are absolutely draining. I'm really trying to understand how the three women in this story managed to twist reality this hard. The ex is just openly unhinged. She's clearly looking for easy money. That part is obvious. My sister? I genuinely don't get her. How do you look at an actual DNA test result and still choose to believe some random "no, the DNA test is lying" narrative? And my mom, I'm disappointed you've become so selfish. What kind of nonsense is that? Why on earth should he be financially responsible for a child that isn't his? And sure, it would be different if this wasn't an ex who tried to scam him into paying child support, but a woman he met later in life who already had a child. If he wanted a serious relationship with her, then yes, of course he'd have to accept and support the child as part of the package. But here? Stranger's kid, bad history, abusive ex. How exactly did she think this would work? That he'd just go, yeah, sure, I'll sign up as dad, even though he knows the kid isn't his? Let's look at some comments. Tell your sister that if she's so concerned, she should give your ex the money, since she contributed exactly as much to that child's conception as you did. And honestly, yes. If this is such a moral crisis for them, why aren't they paying her child support? Another commenter, not only that, she clearly cheated on you when the child was conceived, while you were still together, risking your health with STIs, and then tried to scam you by claiming the child is yours. She doesn't deserve a single dime. Do your mother and sister even know what she did when you were together? The abuse, the control, the obvious cheating since the kid's age lines up with your relationship, but his DNA clearly doesn't. Did you explain all of this to them so they can maybe understand where you're coming from? Because if they still pity this scammer afterwards, they can just send her money themselves. The OP replies that his family does know she was abusive. They just never really believed him. Update. After his last post, he read through all the comments and decided to show them to his mom. They talked about the whole situation again. At first, as always, she was on the ex's side. But after reading the post and all the replies, she realized she was in the wrong. He thinks what shook her most was people questioning if the ex had cheated on OP's father as well, and whether that was part of why she clung so hard to this woman's version of events. They had a very long talk. His mom admitted she believed the ex because she had always been so sweet and polite to her, and she didn't want to believe that such a nice girl could have been abusive or manipulative. So when her son told her what actually happened, she assumed he must be lying. In her words, a good girl like her would never do something like that, so you must be lying. After this conversation, she apologized to him. Their relationship is more or less okay now. His sister, on the other hand, is a different story. At first, she decided she wouldn't speak to him until he took responsibility. A few days later, he tried talking to her anyway. She stayed fully on the ex's side, even after he showed her all the evidence. She said none of that matters, because a woman's word comes first, and that's all the proof anyone should need. She also said, even if you're not the biological father, you have an emotional responsibility to her. You should man up, take responsibility, and act like a real man. Which is absolutely hopeless. What emotional responsibility? OP did some digging and found out that shortly after their breakup, his ex started dating another guy. Or maybe she'd already been cheating with him. He's not sure. They broke up a few weeks later, and she dated around a bit more before discovering she was pregnant. He also learned that she'd been trying to find a father for the child for the last 2 years, and he was simply next on the list. It looks like she's more desperate now, which explains why she's never been this aggressive with anyone else. Then, we get to the reason for the latest update. A few days ago, his ex and his sister showed up at his workplace. They brought a big poster with his face on it and the words, "He abandoned his child. Irresponsible father." They staged a full-on scene, shouting nonsense to anyone who would listen. The idea was to publicly shame him and weaponize social pressure to force him to take responsibility. They literally said that. Long story short, security removed them from the building. OP still got into trouble because of the spectacle, even after he showed all the evidence and legal documents proving they were lying. He was warned that if something like this happens again, he could lose his job. After that, he contacted his lawyer friend, and they started drafting a long, detailed lawsuit against both his ex and his sister. They pushed things too far. Now he's going after them, hoping they'll finally back off and leave him alone. He says he doesn't even have the energy for his own commentary anymore. He's still in shock from their audacity, so he'll let the comments speak. One person writes, "Good luck with the restraining order." OP responds, "And with a defamation suit, and anything else my lawyer can add." Another comment, "If you can lean into the emotional aspect, you should say how excited you were at first about being a dad, and then sue for emotional damages too." Someone else says, "Dude, your sister is a mess. I'd cut contact with her." OP replies that if she keeps acting like this, he will stop talking to her. Another user notes, "I doubt your sister has kids, or that their father is 100% sure they're his. I find it really weird that she's doubling and tripling down on this, when she knows you're not the father." OP answers, "She's single, no kids. She's just obsessed with this always believe women idea." Which, to be clear, was originally meant about survivors of abuse and violence. Not about, a random woman shows up 5 years later with a kid, you do a DNA test, and it's not yours, but you're still supposed to believe her over science. Then there's the issue with his mom. In a healthy setup, you believe your child unless and until you have strong reason not to. Your kid's word should matter to you. It would absolutely destroy me if my own mother chose a stranger's story over mine, especially on something this big. Here, mom's logic was basically, she's such a nice girl, she wouldn't lie. You, on the other hand, lied a lot when you were 3 to 6 years old, so I still don't fully trust you. OP explains, "Yeah, it hurt, but it didn't shock me. My mom has always been more likely to believe other people over me. I lied a lot as a little kid between ages 3 and 6, so since then she's always doubted my word." Which is just wild. Every kid that age makes stuff up. That's normal. Kids live half in reality, half in their imagination. Building your entire adult trust in your child on what they said between ages 3 and 6 is just absurd. Finally, the latest update. Hi everyone. First of all, I can't share too many details about the lawsuit. The main thing I can say is that my ex was absolutely terrified when she found out about it. Now she's begging me to drop everything. She offered to take back everything she said, never bother me again, and never contact me in any way. She even tried to guilt-trip me, saying I'm ruining her life and her son's life. Honestly, I don't care anymore. I'm done being the nice guy. She started this. I'm just responding. As for my sister, the lawsuit made her even worse at first. Since her attempt to shame me at work didn't go the way she hoped, she moved the whole circus to social media, spreading lies that I'm abandoning my child, that I refuse to take responsibility, and framing my legal actions as censorship and misogyny. But in the long run, this will only hurt her. Not only can I easily disprove her claims, but all of this just adds more evidence to my case. It's going to be a long road, and we're only at the beginning. Recently, we had another family gathering at my parents' place before Christmas. I didn't want to go because I didn't want to be around my sister, but some relatives promised she wouldn't be there. I decided to give it a chance. Big mistake. She was there. My mom had decided that, despite everything, I had gone too far, and she wanted us all to sit down and talk it out as a family. As soon as I realized what she was trying to do, I tried to leave. But some relatives stopped me, and my mom was crying, saying I'm tearing the family apart and need to learn to forgive and let go. How do people like this exist? At that point, I realized that no matter what I say or do, even knowing I'm telling the truth, my mom will still take my sister's side. I told her I will not attend any family event if my sister is going to be there, and that she needs to stop trying to ambush me like this ever again. By now, almost the entire extended family knows what my sister did. Some think she's insane, others think she is insane, and that I've gone too far. A few days ago, my mom invited me to spend Christmas with them. I didn't want to go after everything that happened, but I agreed to give her one last chance when she promised nothing like that would happen again. Then my brother warned me that this time she was planning to literally lock me in the house until I talked to my sister and drop everything. I called my mom and told her I knew about her plan, that I won't be talking to her or my sister until they understand they backed the wrong person and apologize. I won't even bother describing how many times they tried calling me in the next few hours, or how much drama there was when I didn't show up for Christmas. But again, I'm tired of being the good guy. So let's tally this up. Showing up at someone's workplace with a protest sign accusing him of abandoning a child that isn't his? Apparently fine. Smearing him online and nearly getting him fired? Also fine. But defending himself legally and filing a lawsuit? Now that's too far, apparently. He's the problem. He has to forgive and let go. Maybe, just maybe, it would be easier if the sister simply stopped being unhinged. Even the ex, more or less, has backed off now. Aside from dealing with the lawsuit. But the sister and the mom keep going. Next story incoming. Story number 5. My husband refused to answer my calls while I was in labor, and my brother pulled a horrible prank. Now my husband is mad that I won't cut him off. My husband refused to answer my calls while I was giving birth, and my brother pulled a horrible prank on him. Now my husband is furious that I'm not planning to cut my brother out of my life. My husband and I had a fight about a week before our daughter was born, when he randomly suggested we should do a paternity test once the baby arrived. Just to be clear, this came completely out of nowhere and without any reason. I'm a stay-at-home wife, I work remotely, and I don't have any male friends besides my brother. I told my husband that what he was really doing was accusing me of cheating. He said he just wanted to be sure and kept bringing it up over and over until after 3 days of his questions and the stress making me physically sick, I told him I didn't want to talk to him and went to stay at my brother's place. While I was gone, I called my husband and tried to fix things, but he refused to talk to me. After all that, I went back home the next day to grab some things while he was at work, and that's when my contractions started. I called him 16 times before calling my brother, who then called my husband another half-dozen times while he was driving to pick me up, and again on the way to the hospital. The labor was awful and traumatic. I started pushing in the car, and the doctor had to deliver the baby on the back seat of my brother's van because it was too far along to move me safely. Then he rushed me to the hospital because I was still bleeding heavily. It was horrific. I hated every second of it. My brother's wife, who was a nurse, later told me she honestly thought I might not survive. I always wanted either one child or none at all, but my husband wanted a big family. Here's the key part. When I was coming out of surgery, about 10 hours after I'd started calling him, my husband finally picked up and asked why I hadn't answered his call. My phone, however, was with my brother, and my brother was so furious that he just said, "She's in the hospital, she didn't make it," and then hung up. My husband rushed to the hospital, and the moment I woke up, he started yelling until security came and removed him from the room. Because of that, he wasn't allowed to see our daughter until the next day, since I was sleeping almost constantly, and they needed my signature to let him back in. My sister-in-law thinks the prank was cruel and horrible, but that he deserved it. My brother stands by what he did and says he only gave my husband 10 minutes of the same gut-wrenching fear he himself felt for over 10 hours while sitting next to me. Every time he sees my husband, my brother brings up the fact that I nearly died just because we were waiting for my husband to pick up his phone. Before all this, my brother was mostly indifferent toward my husband. Now he flat out hates him. You can see it on his face whenever my husband walks into the room. My brother visits me often because he doesn't trust my husband to take proper care of me while I'm still recovering. My husband is furious that my brother won't apologize and that I won't make him do it. He yelled at me when I said the only reason my phone was with my brother was because my husband wasn't there in the first place. I'm trying to be empathetic. I know he feels guilty. My mother-in-law texted me to say my family is very cruel for that prank, and that I shouldn't have any more contact with my brother. Now my husband is saying the same thing. I honestly don't know what to do. I feel out of my mind. It's hard for me to be in the same room with my husband. I sleep in the guest room with our daughter. One time he brought up the paternity test again, and, completely exhausted, I just told him either to get out of my sight or go to his mother if he planned to stress me out any further. I genuinely feel awful. Yes, I'm taking the possibility of PTSD very seriously, and my therapist has also suggested that's probably what it is. I just want more perspectives, because I don't trust my own judgment right now. So, more thoughts. This man is pretty much the most disgusting jerk on the planet. How do you even decide that, in the last weeks, even days, of your wife's pregnancy, you're going to start talking about a paternity test? I think a lot of women would be deeply hurt by that. It's straight-up distrust. And when a woman is about to give birth, the last thing she needs is extra stress. Her hormones are already making everything more intense. Yet he throws this at her and hammers on it for 3 days. In my opinion, if you truly have doubts and want to check them, fine. Get a DNA test quietly. I understand people who say, if there's nothing to hide, why not do the test? The test itself is not the problem. But the moment your supposedly loving husband says, let's do a paternity test, he's telling you he doesn't trust you. If someone just wants to be sure, they can handle that privately, without turning it into a performance and throwing it in their partner's face. Then we have this. She's at the very end of her pregnancy, about to give birth, and he lets her just walk out and go to her brother's house. Doesn't try to reconcile. Doesn't answer her calls. I'm sorry, but anything could have happened. And it did. She called him 16 times. Her brother called God knows how many times. In my place, I would have done exactly what her brother did, if not worse. She nearly died, and when he finally shows up, he starts screaming at her, to the point where security has to escort him out, 10 hours after the first calls. There is simply no normal situation nowadays where someone just doesn't have their phone or has no signal for 10 straight hours. The only way that makes sense is if you're literally in the middle of the ocean or in space. In real life, you see dozens of missed calls from your heavily pregnant wife, and you immediately call back. You don't wait and then say, why didn't you answer my call? After such a birth, after she almost died, a few days later, she's sleeping in the guest room instead of the master bedroom. Usually, the guest bed is worse too. She's in there with a newborn, he's in the main bedroom alone, and he feels fine about that. And then he brings up the paternity test. Again. That's murder-level nerve. Now, the comments. Oh my God, your husband sounds like a ton of work. Normally I'd say that prank was really low, but honestly, I support what your brother did. They quote the part where the OP says her brother was pretty indifferent to the husband before all this, and now he truly hates him, constantly points out that she could have died because of him, and doesn't trust him to look after her. Comment. Yeah, he sat in that van, terrified, watching his sister bleed and scream in pain, because her selfish husband couldn't be bothered to pick up his phone. Honestly, I think he's being pretty reasonable. If this had happened to me, at least one of my brothers would probably be in jail right now. Her brother is helping her, protecting her, standing up for her, and raging at the man who is mistreating her. No wonder that toxic side of the family wants that strong presence out of her life. Sorry, but after everything that happened, your husband still brought up the paternity test after you gave birth? Girl, you have so many reasons to divorce him. What your brother did was harsh, but in these circumstances, I really can't blame him. Your husband is fixated on extremes, and his selfishness literally put your life at risk. Honestly, I wouldn't listen to a word out of your Mill's mouth. She raised this jerk. Of course she wants you to reconcile so she doesn't have to take her son back in. After all this, I don't even know if it's worth trying to forgive him, and he's definitely not acting like someone who understands he needs forgiveness. And you don't owe him sympathy just because he feels guilty. He should feel guilty. Instead of apologizing, he's attacking his traumatized wife right after childbirth. He's absolute trash. There were also tons of comments suggesting that, with this whole paternity test obsession, he's probably projecting, meaning he's the one cheating and trying to convince himself that she must be cheating too, so he can feel less guilty. Which honestly makes a lot of sense. It explains both the test fixation and the mysterious 10 hours of radio silence. Update. I don't think we can go back to normal. I just don't think I can heal while staying with him. There's no way he didn't know it was me calling, and he still hasn't told me why he didn't answer. I thought I wouldn't have the courage to leave right away, but I don't want to forget how horrible it was to wait for him, thinking he couldn't just abandon me like that, no matter how angry he was. I took time to really sit with that moment right before everything went off the rails, how deeply betrayed, scared, and alone I felt when the contractions started, when I was on my knees trying to breathe through the pain, waiting for him to pick up. I don't think you can just go back to normal after that. I don't want my daughter growing up thinking it's normal to stay with a man who destroys your trust like this. I'll contact a lawyer and meet with them in the next few weeks. We have a prenup, so hopefully it won't turn into total hell. I would never ignore that many calls from him in a row unless I had specifically told him I'd be unavailable at a certain time. I'm really grateful my brother and his wife are here with me, especially her, as a nurse, and because she was with me during the birth. It brought us much closer. I also finally told some old friends about the baby, and they've been taking turns visiting and helping. We haven't touched the paternity test topic again yet, but I guess I'll go ahead and get one done for court, so he'll ultimately get what he wanted. Either way, I'm safe, I'm basically okay. And my little girl is healthy and happy like a peach, practically a tiny angel who falls asleep anywhere and latches easily, which is such a blessing because everything still hurts. Making the decision to divorce lifted a strange weight off my shoulders, and my sister-in-law is really helping our little family feel more solid. And from me, thank God she chose not to stay with him. It's all crystal clear. With a husband like that, honestly, how did she marry him in the first place? Some commenters ask, I reread the original post in this one. Has your husband ever actually said why he didn't answer? She replies, no, that's one of the things that tipped the scale. He's completely silent about it and just keeps saying he didn't see the calls. People respond, he was drunk, cheating, or drunk, yeah, and cheating. A lot of them tell her to consider the possibility he had an affair, maybe even hire a private investigator. Many say things like, he was 100% with another woman. That's where he was while you were desperately trying to reach him, and that's why he pushed so hard for the paternity test. Classic projection. That's where the updates end. I really hope she's now happy with her daughter, that she got full custody, that the divorce went smoothly, and that her ex is metaphorically lying in a ditch somewhere emotionally. And that's the last story for today. Story 6. Am I the jerk for buying my nephew a gift instead of handing the money to his parents? Am I in the wrong for buying my nephew a present instead of just giving cash to his parents? My nephew just turned 1. Hannah, 34, and Dave, 34, are his parents. They both work full-time, have a solid double income, and are doing perfectly fine. They're comfortably middle class, own their home, and go on vacation twice a year. For their first and only child's first birthday, they decided to throw a big party. A bit of context. My husband and I are known in the family for giving really nice birthday gifts to our nieces and nephews. The kids range from 1 to 13, and we also know that the other 2 sibling families have a lot more financial struggles than Hannah and Dave, who this post is about. So we always ask what their child would like and try our best to get them something special. I don't mean insanely expensive stuff like an iPad, but we usually spend around $150–200 per birthday each year. I texted Hannah and asked what her son William might like and what he doesn't already have at home. She never replied. Later that same day, she sends out a mass email to relatives and friends who were invited to William's first birthday from both sides of the family. It said, "Hi, friends and family. We're so excited to celebrate William's first birthday with you. Some of you have been asking what you can buy for him. What he really needs is a new deck so he can play in our backyard. So we're asking everyone to contribute money toward that instead of buying physical gifts. The deck will cost $10,000, and we're expecting about 35 of you to attend. Please make a contribution. William will be so happy to have this new outdoor space. Love, Hannah, Dave, and William." From the moment I read it, the request felt off. I get that there's a trend toward experience gifts instead of more stuff. I understand the environmental arguments and the less clutter, more meaning mindset, but this wasn't that. This was a deck, and I am absolutely sure Hannah and Dave could afford it themselves without doing a mini fundraiser. Anyway, the part that might make me the jerk is this. I decided to ignore the email completely and spent $200 on a new playhouse for William instead. I'd noticed he was obsessed with the one at our place that our boys have. I justified it to myself by thinking he's way too young to understand that. In my opinion, his parents are basically scamming him out of an actual birthday present. At the party, Hannah clearly noticed the big box among the stack of envelopes stuffed with cash. She asked who brought it, and my husband, her brother, said, "We did." She said, "I sent that email on purpose after your text. Did you not read it?" My husband told her to talk to me about it later. She then told me she was very upset and disappointed in me because she'd expected us to make the biggest contribution since we have more money than the rest of the family. I told her we wanted to get something just for William. She frowned, got all huffy, and then told the rest of the family that I was using her son's birthday to make them look bad. The rest of the relatives are split on who's right, so, am I the jerk? Oh my God, I'm going to drop in a picture somewhere here of what these backyard decks in the US usually look like, because I think in our heads it's something completely different. When I first read this story, I honestly didn't fully get what was going on. And then it clicked. Yeah, I'm sure every 1-year-old lies awake at night dreaming of a deck. This is obviously not the baby's wish, it's the parents'. Second, $10,000. I'm sorry, why are we passing the hat around the family for that? 35 people. And that extra little detail, that she expected them to contribute the most because they have more money. She could have at least kept that thought in her head. Comments. Not the jerk. That email was basically, please give us $300 each for home improvements. Completely inappropriate. Let's be kind and chalk their behavior up to the stress of the current financial climate. Buying a child a birthday present for his birthday was absolutely appropriate. They were in the wrong when they A. asked everyone for a wad of cash, and B. demanded to know who dared to buy their child an actual gift instead of handing over money. Another person wrote, I had a friend who only wanted cash as wedding gifts. Anything under $500 wasn't even considered. On the wedding day, only about 3 guests turned up. The bride then went on social media accusing all of us of ruining her wedding. And another comment, not the jerk. They're blatantly using their kid's birthday to raise funds for a home renovation. So next year it'll be, William loves bath time. We want to remodel the bathroom just for him. It'll cost $35,000. There are 35 of you. Please use PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, and remember, this is William's birthday present. And then, William is turning 3 and he loves swimming. We want to build him a pool with a party area, hot tub, and bar. That'll be about $50,000. There are 35 of you. Please be generous and don't delay payment. Remember, this is William's birthday present. P.S. We'll also need about $4,000 to demolish the deck we built 2 years ago because we need the space for his new pool. Personally, I think the OP and her husband did absolutely the right thing by giving a 1-year-old an actual toy and not just funneling money into his parents' house. And I genuinely can't wrap my head around how some people have the nerve to try to cash grab off their kid's birthday like this. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the like button. It would make me incredibly happy. Have a wonderful day.